Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. My name is Suzanne, and I'm the head coach at G.R.A.C.E Financial Coaching. And Trina Scippio is my guest today. Trina is a certified credit counselor and financial coach, and she specializes in helping single mothers stop living through the paycheck to paycheck cycle. Good morning, Trina. How are you?
Good morning, Suzanne. I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today. So it's pretty often that I have financial coaches on, and Trina and I are in the same community. But not everybody is a certified credit counselor. So can you give us a little background on how that makes you different?
So I took courses to go through credit counseling training, to learn all the ins and outs. I actually worked at a credit union for almost 17, 18 years where I was a branch manager.
Oh, wow.
And doing that, I help people with loans, review their credit. So once that season was over, I decided that's really what I enjoy doing, helping people rebuild their credit, and repair their credit, reestablish their credit so that they could become homeowners or just improve their quality of life. Because, if your credit is tore up, it's hard for you to try to do anything.
Yep. And there's how do we want to say this? There are thought processes out there that credit doesn't matter. I think even when I started doing this almost 10 years ago, that was probably more of an accurate statement. But today with, FICO scores, you literally click a button and you get an updated score. Whereas 10 years ago, you had to request it. And depending on who you were requesting it through, you might actually have to pay them.
Right.
We didn't have access. Well, I guess 10 years ago, we would have just gotten access to like annualcreditreport.com.
Yeah.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
But even then, people still don't know about that. It's unfortunately, I think we do, as financial coaches, we do need to start having our clients pay attention to their credit score more often than maybe we want to. Some people fixate on it, and that's not healthy.
Right.
But I think we do need to start paying attention to it more and making sure what we're telling our clients to do isn't going to adversely affect them. What do you think about I don't want to say overuse, because like I said, everybody can just click a button and get their FICO score. But what do you think about the increased focus on it, maybe the last 10 or 12 years?
I definitely think there is more of a focus. I do understand what you're saying about the thought where some people say credit, you don't need credit. You do and you don't.
Good.
It just depends on what you're trying to do, because there are some instances where no credit, even if it was good and you've paid everything off, it can hurt you. It can hurt you depending on what you're trying to do. So yeah, I just try to educate.
Yeah, I just had this conversation with somebody a week or two ago. They are not good with credit cards. Like they're like, Suzanne, the second we're done with these, we're closing them. We're getting rid of all of them. We're so sick of it. And I explained one of the things that they love to see in these credit scores that helps you is the revolvingness. I just made up a new word. The revolvingness of your charges. And so they love to see usage and payoff and usage and payoff.
Yep.
So I said, I totally understand closing the Kohl's card and closing the store cards, because you're more tempted to go to the store when you've got the Kohl's card open.
Yes.
We'll close those when we're good and ready. We will close those systematically, not all at once.
Right.
But I did encourage them, because they are going to be, they're going to be getting towards retirement. They're going to be downsizing soon. And I said, yes, you guys have never missed a mortgage payment, but they're going to want to see some sort of revolving credit usage. And I think we need to focus on telling our clients that that's more important than, the client using it for everything and getting the airline miles and all that kind of stuff. What do you think? What do you see personally when it comes to healthy usage?
So I have, well, she didn't become a client, but somebody I spoke with who has credit cards, and her thing was trying to get her score to be higher because she wanted to buy land.
Okay.
And it's 640. And so she has to keep her credit good because of her security clearance.
Ah, yes. Military or contractor or something.
Yes.
Yep.
So I told her, I looked at her, we went through annualcreditreport.com. I looked at her credit. I mean, she's doing the right thing. It just takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time for your score to go up. And what happened is she saw some stuff on social media or something that told her how to get her credit up. And the stuff she did actually dropped her credit score really, really low. So she was like, that was not smart. I'm like, yeah, that was not smart. So
I know. And right before we hit record, Trina and I were talking about different social media platforms. And I was going to say, there's some stuff you're going to see on TikTok that's not going to be accurate.
Yeah.
Make sure the person you're listening to is a Trina, certified credit counselor, and not just some, fly by night girl who found a trick that fixed her credit.
Right. Exactly. Because you have a lot of that out there. Look what I did, and you're doing that and it's not working for you.
Yeah. I had a very positive experience. I would love to know your take on the, I think the only one who's doing it is still Experian, the Experian credit boost.
Yeah.
I had a very good experience with that with a client. Again, a long time ago, she needed to move. Her apartment complex was getting shut down, full renovations. And when she came back, the rent was going to be $4,000 a month. This was in Southern California. Oh yeah. It was going from $2,000 to $4,000. And they systematically got everyone out of their leases and they were shutting down and they were going to be putting $20 million in there and the rents were going to be through the roof. So she knew she had to move. So I think that's a good example because I lived in San Diego for 5 years and pretty much everything is corporate run. You'll find the one-off homeowner that's got half a house for rent, but more often than not, you're going to be working with a corporate organization and they're going to be running your credit. And so I remember thinking like, I don't want her using these credit cards. Yeah. She's already shown she's not very good with them, but how are we had to get her credit score up like 100. And so I hadn't had anybody use Experian Credit Boost at that time. And so I was like, you know what? You already know you don't want to use credit cards. You already know they're too much of a temptation for you. Let's try this. Excuse me. And we did it. And we got that plus systematically paying down her debt. We got her credit score up 99 points in less than a year.
It works. I've seen it.
Okay.
I've seen it even when I worked in the credit union. Now, the only bad side to that from when I was working in the credit union, when you do the Experian Credit Boost or something like that, now that stuff is showing on your credit.
Oh, okay. So maybe 5 years ago, it wouldn't have shown.
It counts in your debt to income ratio when you go to apply for something.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. So that's very good to know.
So we had some people that had that stuff not been on their credit report, they probably would have qualified that to income wise. But because it was on their credit report, the loan department calculated that stuff in with their debt ratio.
Gotcha. So they
added. I tried
to,
because everything else was fine, but they did that to try to boost their credit score.
Got it. Okay. So like, I think both of these examples that we've given now are good examples of things that worked for one person, but might not work for everyone.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it helped them increase their score, but then the downside was now we're calculating this stuff that normally would not be calculated in your debt income.
Right. That's so interesting. Yeah. And I distinctly remember just the shock of my client at the time being like, how did we get this up almost 100? This is insane. But it was a combination of, the Experian Credit Boost. I think we had turned it on for like 3 months.
Yeah.
We also focused significantly on paying down the credit cards that she had maxed out. Yes. So it wasn't just the one piece.
Mm-hmm.
It was a combination of everything, and it was a good experience. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, your historical knowledge of the processes is, I mean, second to none, because you've seen it from all sides at this point.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, before you became a fount of knowledge, Trina, I got to ask everybody. That's why we have our financial experts on the show. The whole point is to let people know that we've all done dumb stuff with money. We can all recover. We're all sitting here today knowing that we can come to the other side. So what would you say is the dumbest thing you ever did with money?
I don't know. I was trying to think about this. I was like, which one should I which dumb thing should I say? Because I've done so much just not knowing, not being educated on how to handle stuff. Like, so when the very first thing that I did, right when you graduate and you start going to college and you get out there, they start sending you those credit card offers.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is great. Like, I had a credit card to every store in the mall, almost every store in the mall. Plus, I had the Visa and the MasterCard.
So
I was just like thinking I was living life, and friends call, let's go out. Oh yeah, let me go buy an outfit.
Yes. Oh yes. I remember we would go to I'm trying to remember, you don't talk about those things when you're in college, but like trying to remember who had a credit card and who didn't. But we would go to Forever 21 and get like a $9 shirt to go to the club that weekend.
I love New York and Company. That was my store.
I can't believe you said that. That's the only store card I've ever had. That's the only store card I've ever had. That's hysterical.
It was Learners at first.
Yes.
And then it changed to New York and Company. That was my favorite.
Yes, I cannot believe that. I've never had a Kohl's card. I've never had a Gap card. I've never had an Old Navy card. I've only ever had a New York and Company card. I loved that store.
I love that store.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I was so sad when they closed.
I know. That was pre-COVID, right? They closed before COVID. Yeah.
But I had all the credit cards and I thought, this is great. Let me just. And then when the bill started, I just was like, oh, okay, $25. Oh, that's nothing. I can pay that. Until I started getting more and more and more.
Right.
And now the $25 is like almost $300.
Right. $25 times
car payment.
Yeah.
I'm like, on top of rent. And I'm like, how can I do all this? And I just went crazy.
What was your first step at that point?
So I didn't know. I didn't know how to handle it. I was just juggling it all, just trying to juggle it all and make it work. And then I started doing the payday loans to try to get myself ahead to pay, and that's what I would do. That was my life. Even when I was working in, early in my career, working in the bank, I was doing the payday loans to try to get ahead, to try to pay, but I was never able to get ahead. And then finally I was just like, I don't know what to do. And then all my friends was like, oh, just go file bankruptcy. And I'm like, what is that?
Oh my goodness.
So I was probably 22, 23. And I probably only had like $10,000 worth of debt, really.
Oh my God. If we got a client today with $10,000 worth of debt, we'd be throwing a party.
Right.
Yeah. We'd be like, that's it? That's all you got?
I didn't know how to handle it. So I went and saw a lawyer, and this was before all the bankruptcy laws that they have now. So everybody was filing Chapter 7.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yeah,
I
that
was like,
changed in
okay,
what, like 2009?
yeah, it was way before that,
Yeah, yeah,
way
yeah, yeah.
before 2009. And I was just like, okay, great. I can, this all will go away. I won't have to pay none of this. Oh, yes, great. But I wasn't educated still. That didn't help
Right.
because I didn't get the educational still how to handle my credit. So after you file bankruptcy, 2 years, then everybody starts sending you credit card offers again. And of course I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be smarter this time. I'm not gonna get I found myself right back in that same cycle. But this time I didn't want to file, I was like, okay, I'm not filing bankruptcy.
Okay.
By then I was married in my first marriage, and we didn't handle our bills the same. We split everything in half. I paid my
Okay.
bills, he paid his bills, and then we split all the other bills. So when we went through our separation, he left, and that left me having to pay everything. And I was like, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
So I had to fight my way up out of that. And I did because I was determined. I was not. And then in the process, I got pregnant, had a baby. So I became a single mother. And I was determined I needed to make a better life for me and my daughter. So working at the credit union, working with our credit counselor there, and I was at a small credit union then. So everything was still kind of done in house. So they gave me a loan to pay off a lot of my collections and stuff to get my credit
Oh,
right. And I just started working really hard to clean up my credit. And then I was like, okay, now I'm gonna start educating people when they come in here. So,
oh,
and that's what I started doing, educating people. And I brought my, first home as a single mother.
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So I was just like, okay, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
it.
Now, I have a hard time because I see some ads online for banks, not credit unions. I'll get to the
Hmm.
credit unions in a second, where they're offering financial classes. Some
Hmm.
big banks out there that everyone knows the name of. If I gave you three chances, you'd rattle off two out of three of them right away.
Hmm.
Um, and I see we actually don't have cable or anything like that, but like if we're at watching a football game out somewhere, right? I'm seeing regular TV commercials, and I see this particular bank advertising their educational classes.
Hmm.
And I have a hard time, as much as we love coaching in person, and like you said, having the experience in the bank
Hmm.
versus online or on the phone or something like that, just have a hard time recommending somebody go to those classes, because the problem is the bank that's putting them on has products that they can sell. And so are they giving you all the proper information, or are they giving you the information that makes their products look like the answer?
True. That's
Yeah.
that's very true. You don't know. And like you said, the difference between the bank and the credit union, because I've worked at both. Um, when I worked at both, the bank, it was sell, 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 sell,
Oh,
you know. So when I started working at a credit union, I was like, oh gosh, this is great. But they have changed a lot over the years. Like credit unions now, because they have to make money, and I get it. But when I was at the credit union, we were a smaller credit union. So we did take the time, like we had a collections person and a credit counselor. And if we felt like if I had a client, a member that needed to talk to her, we would set up an appointment. And she was actually helping people, you know, fix their credit and pay off their credit and clean it up and stuff. So um but she would get a lot of our members. So then when I became a manager, I kind of helped take on that role as well, helping, educating and talking to them. And even our member service representatives would do the same thing. Now, once we merged with a larger credit union, um, we couldn't do it as much. We
okay.
still would take the time to do it, but couldn't do it as much.
Gotcha. It's you still do get the personalized experience in at a credit union, I feel like.
Yes, you do.
And where I live now, I feel like I get it. There's just so many to choose from, and you
Yeah.
still do get that. But unfortunately, that's just not the case with some of these larger
Yeah.
banks,
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. What if somebody is listening and they have a concern that they want to address and they would like to be able to go into a credit union? What would you tell them? What would you tell them to do today?
A concern
Such as their debt's gotten out of control. They need to get back on the, they need to get back on the wagon, but they don't really know like who to trust.
and if they went into a credit union.
Yeah.
So I would just ask them, do they have some type of programs that can help them?
Okay.
Because a lot of people, when they get into issues, they think, oh, I don't want to answer that call, or I don't want to talk to them. But if you just talk to, a lot of them have different type of repayment plans, debt programs that can help you. So even in the credit union, a lot of times when our members would come in and they let us know, hey, I got into some, we would do stuff to try to see what we could do to help them. Like even some skip payments for a couple of months where, it wasn't no fee, rearranging their payment dates, or we even did some consolidations for some members. We would take a look at their credit to try to see what we could do to help them with some consolidations. But some credit unions may have credit counselors there. I don't know if all of them still do. I know the one we worked at, we did, but a lot of that is going away now.
Well, but I think your first piece of advice is huge because people don't want to answer the phone. They're too afraid to answer the phone. And it's more of a fear of the unknown sometimes.
You just have to answer the phone and you have to be honest with them and let them know, look, I am having some financial difficulties right now. I cannot pay this amount, and you have to take back control and let them know what you can pay.
Okay.
That's what I tell a lot of my clients too. Like, take control back. Don't let them tell you what you can pay, because you know your budget. You know what you can afford to pay.
Well, I'm going to fight you on that, because sometimes I talk to people and they don't know their budget.
Well, that's true. That part is true. I'm seeing when we have gotten their budget together.
Yep. That is the caveat. If you are listening to this and you don't know what you could pay, then call Trina and sit down with her and figure it out. But it is, if you don't know, again, it's fear of the unknown.
Yes.
To me.
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
It's not going to help you to keep your head in the sand.
Yeah.
That's not going to help.
Yeah.
And it, a lot of times when we work with people, when Trina and I sit down from a coaching standpoint, it's usually not as bad as people think it is.
It is never as bad as they think it is.
Yeah. And so continuing to keep your head in the sand is not going to help. It's just it's gonna prolong the situation, right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Trina, ultimate question. If you could go back in time, would you change anything?
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
What would you change?
I wouldn't have filed bankruptcy.
Okay.
I wouldn't have filed that bankruptcy because I didn't have a lot of debt. I didn't have a lot that was worth even filing. I could have probably really dug in deep and worked my way out of that situation, but I didn't know.
Right.
I didn't know. And then after that, I went back into the same rhythm because I didn't know. Still, because I wasn't educated on how to handle my finances. I didn't know. I didn't really get the education until later, me working in the banks and credit unions and just talking to some of my seasoned coworkers who was like, hey, this what you do. So I didn't know.
Yeah. And you were so blessed to get into that area of work. Most of us aren't, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people would have filed bankruptcy, gone right back to where they started and not gotten the education.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have to be able to step up and say, hey, I need help in this area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. I love it. Trina, thank you so much for sharing your financial blunders with us. Absolutely. Everybody join us next week for another episode of Lessons Learned, the dumbest thing I've ever done with money. All of Trina's contact information is in our show notes today. So if you want to get a hold of her, you can do so. And Trina, thanks again for having us.
Thank you.
On.
I enjoyed it. You
All
made
right,
me go back.